In the session today, you'll see from my title that I've referred to pans and pandas as storms. It's an analogy that I found helpful to use because, like storms, the conditions can come on quite suddenly and unexpectedly, and it can be extremely overwhelming and destructive and feel like it's completely beyond control. And while we haven't found a magic fix yet to calm that storm, what I hope I can offer you today is a compassionate approach, and as Vicky said, some practical kind of survival care tools. And perhaps most importantly, a reminder that you're not alone in navigating the storm. Um, Before I start, I just want to acknowledge that I think you just being here today, wanting to learn more about parenting when living with pans and pans takes a lot of courage. Parenting a child with PANS or PANDAS can be incredibly challenging. You may well be exhausted, anxious, uncertain what the future holds, or carrying a lot of grief, and it makes complete sense if you are. So I hope while listening, you're feeling comfortable and know that you matter, your well-being matters. And if at any point you feel triggered by anything presented today or upset, just know it's okay to take a pause from this webinar, and it's, as Vicky said, it's being recorded, so you can come back to it anytime. So just a slight little overview of our journey together today for the next 55 minutes. I'll explain what I mean by a compassionate approach. So it's a tool, and it's, it being a tool to care for your own and your child's well-being. We'll explore our emotional responses and how we might be able to best regulate them. And then I'll share some practical strategies that you can use to support your own well-being and your child's. So at the end of this webinar, I hope that you'll feel a little bit more confident in knowing how to navigate the storms that you may well be living with, and to how to respond with compassion, and to carry with you some skills and understanding that can help you survive those really difficult moments. So what do I mean? You've been hearing the word compassion a lot already. It's a thread that's going to run throughout the session, and I thought it'd be helpful just to start with defining what I mean by the word compassion. It's introduced mainly by a lot of research that's been done by Professor 𝘗𝘰𝘵, and he's got a definition which I think makes a lot of sense, and that is sensitivity to suffering in yourself, and that's as a parent and of others, with a real commitment to try and relieve and prevent it. Someone called Dr Kirsten Neff, who's done a lot of research on self-compassion, also reminds us that compassion is about kindness, again to ourselves and to others, and a real courage and wisdom to respond wisely in the face of suffering. And this is important because compassion is not just a theory, it's a tool that we can use. So in the middle of a storm of like pans and pandas, compassion gives us a bit of steadiness. It helps us as parents pause before reacting in fear or overdrive. And it can help reduce any feelings of self-blame and helps us preserve some energy and to respond, most importantly, to ourselves and our children with calm rather than panic. So compassion is both the lens we use today, and I'll use it as a theme and like an analogy of using it as an anchor that can hold us steady through this storm. So I'd like to invite you to try just a short exercise, just like 1 or 2 minutes. The aim is simply to give you a sense of what compassion can feel like in your body. You don't have to get this perfectly right. You don't even have to join in. You can just observe. But if you do want to join in, just notice what comes up for you and how you feel about it. So just take a moment when you're ready, just to settle into a comfortable position. Maybe put your both feet on the floor, and just make yourself maybe a slight movement to get yourself comfortable. You can close your eyes, or you can just divert your gaze to something on the floor, whatever feels okay for you, and just bring your attention to your breath. Okay, just notice the rhythm, breathing in and breathing out. No need to change it, just breathe. Now I'd like you to imagine a wise, kind and compassionate figure. This could be a person, an animal, a spiritual being, or even a warm light. It doesn't matter who or what they are, only that when you picture and imagine them in your mind, you feel inside really safe. You feel cared for and really understood. Notice how this compassionate figure looks, sounds, and feels. Imagine the expression on their face, the warmth in their voice, or just the gentle presence surrounding you. This figure only has one wish for you, and that's for you to feel supported and cared for. See if you can sense the kindness in their eyes, the strength in their posture, and the warmth they radiate towards you. And if it feels comfortable, allow this compassionate figure that you're imagining to send you a simple message. Perhaps it's words like, "You're not alone," or "You're enough," or "I'm here with you." Whatever words give you that sense of kindness and caring. Notice how it feels to receive these words, just letting them sink in gently. And just for a moment, I want you to stay with this sense of warmth and care, just for a few breaths in and a few breaths out. Let your body and mind rest in the presence of their compassion. And when you're ready, thank your compassionate figure for being here, and know that you can return to them whenever you need support. Just gently bring your awareness back to the room, wiggle your fingers and your toes, and when you're ready, just come back to the session with us all today. Okay, thank you for taking the time just to engage with that if you did, or just to sit and observe. And as we move forward, I just want to prepare you for the next side. We're going to briefly, over the just next 2, 3 or 4 slides, explain a bit about PANDAS and PANDAS. You probably don't need to be explained about what they are or anything like that. You're not expecting that from this webinar. But I just want to touch upon how the storms can affect us, because I think that helps us all be on the same page to understand the suffering that you and your child and your family might be experiencing now, or have experienced in the past, or are fearful of experiencing again in the future. So as I've mentioned before, I've often described PANDAS and PANDAS flares as storms. I think it's a useful way of understanding just how sudden and disruptive they can be. So they are immune-mediated conditions which affect the brain, which means symptoms can change almost overnight, for others gradually, affecting the mood, behaviour and physical well-being, and they all get swept up. And for children, this understandably can feel frightening and completely out of control, and for you as parents and carers, it can bring so many different feelings of overwhelm and powerlessness, and the whole family feels this ripple effect of the storm. And the unpredictability of the storms can be really hard. You never know when that next storm is going to hit. But remember, storms don't last forever, and with that right medical, psychological support, or whatever it is that you find helpful, children can find calmer periods again. And while you can't control the weather, those storms, you can learn to steady the boat. And so compassion for your child and yourself, I think, can become a vital tool to help you ride through that storm with more stability and with hope. So storms can involve lots of things. For a parent, it's really traumatic to see your child go through these changes that I've just put up on the presentation today. You may see the storm impact your child's thinking in different ways. So difficulties with attention, memory, concentration, and a sort of decline in their schoolwork, or they might have kind of having delusional thoughts. The storm can impact changes in their behaviours. You might see obsessive compulsive behaviours, eating restrictions, checking sell-by dates on labels, might have involuntary movements, being terrified to go to bed at night for fear of not waking up, or being kidnapped in the night, along with lots of meltdowns, aggressive behaviours. There's also that emotional changes too, so lots of anxiety, emotional dysregulation, irritability, quick-tempered. The storms can also impact the body with physical changes too. So your child might be reporting more of headaches, dizziness, that heightened, all their senses are completely heightened, so having strong aversions to smells they've previously found okay, heightened sensitivity to touch or sounds. Do you know, it's a lot? And it's understandable that you, along with your child and family, are probably overwhelmed and exhausted. And before we move on, I just want to pause and make something really clear, that all those kind of those impacts that we've just showed you on previous slide, that these storms that your child's experiencing are biological, and they're not anyone's fault. And by that I mean these storms that are affecting your child's behaviours and emotions and thinking patterns and body sensations. They're not about parenting styles or about your child being difficult. They are biological and neurological responses rooted in inflammation, immunoactivation, and brain changes. And this means it's absolutely no one's fault. You could not have predicted that your child would develop PANS or PANDAS, and you couldn't have prevented it. And you can't control when a flare will hit and at what point. But what you can do, and what I'm going to keep coming back to in this session, is that you can learn how to navigate these storms with more steadiness. And once you hopefully can understand what's happening, you can develop a plan of action that reduces that panic and kind of can conserve your energy that's so precious at the moment, and can support both you and your child and your family. So that's the bridge I want to make now, because while biology explains what's happening to your child, the emotional impact of it all on you as parents and your family is immense, it's massive. So that's what I'm going to move on to next, is how it all impacts you as a parent or carer. And please remember, again, this session's recorded, so if you feel overwhelmed, just remember you can pause, take some time out whenever your well-being matters. So moving on to when storms hit, and we know it's not only the children who suffer, as parents, you get pulled into that storm too. And what you can see, I'm going to share on this slide, are just some of the frequent experiences I've heard about. So many parents describe becoming hypervigilant, and by that I mean like always on alert, like constantly monitoring their child's behaviour or the changes they're having, or the food that they might be eating or not eating, and their health, and how daily life becomes completely unpredictable, and you find yourself having to adjust minute by minute. It's exhausting. There's often that late night researching, or searching for answers, scrolling through articles or forums when you're kind of desperate for solutions, or you're desperate to try and find a doctor that can help or figure out how you can support your child best. And it's just not an easy condition to find the right support, given that there aren't the formal guidelines yet, and not all practitioners are on board for their understanding of the condition. So it's understandable that we have all this late night research, but it's just, over time, this can really kind of take its toll on your well-being, and you might notice that you might be having disrupted sleep, changes in your appetite, you might be eating more, eating less, you might feel just physically really exhausted and not have the energy levels like you used to have, you might have tension headaches. Emotionally, parents talk about that kind of inner critic inner critic. That's kind of the thoughts that you have in the way you talk to yourself, the voice that you have in your head might be getting louder and more negative, like saying, am I doing enough? Am I doing it right? And they can lead to those feelings of feeling overwhelmed, guilt, self-doubt, even helplessness can creep in. And alongside all this comes the anxiety, the stress, the fear about the future, and the loneliness can come when others don't understand what you're going through. And these reactions, these feelings that you're experiencing and that your child's experiencing, are normal human responses to a very challenging experience. Your threat system has understandably been tested to its limits. And I think that's the message I'm wanting to get across, is that there are ways, these are understandable ways that your mind and body react to kind of relentless stress and uncertainty that you're experiencing, and that deep responsibility that comes as a parent when you're caring for a child in crisis. So just moving forwards, I just want to help us understand, once you've got an understanding of kind of the suffering that you as parents might be experiencing and the suffering your child's experience, to really try and understand why these storms feel so overwhelming and why parenting can feel so hard in the midst of them. I'm going to talk briefly now about how our protective brain has evolved and is designed to work. So, oh, did you see my lovely, sorry, just jumping ahead. So take animals, for example. So imagine these zebras in the savannah. It's their day-to-day life. It's all about staying safe. They're eating, they're drinking, they're resting, and they're reproducing. That's their tasks for the day. So imagine the zebra's having a nice drink, but the moment it sees a lion, its protective brain kicks in. Its threat response goes into that fight, flight, freeze response that you might have heard about when we're experiencing anxiety. So its heart might start to race, its muscle starts to tense. There's nowhere to hide, so it bolts. It does that classic flight response to threat and anxiety. So that's the brain reacting instantly to keep it safe. And once the lion's gone, the zebra just goes back to its grazing, the danger's past, and its body returns to calm. So that's the protective brain doing its job exactly as it should. That sort of quick reaction to threat, and then back to balance. So humans, we're very different from zebras, okay? But our evolved brains can do incredible things. We can problem solve, we can build rockets, we can write poetry, we can talk online over a computer, we can plan for the future. But that same brain that allows us to do all these amazing imaginary things and analyze things means we can start over analyzing, we can start worrying, and we replay threats long after they've passed. So unlike zebras, our protective brain can get stuck on high alert. It's a bit like a smoke alarm. The alarm's job is to protect us, and we wouldn't want to switch it off, but sometimes it become oversensitive. And when that happens, that alarm starts going off even when nothing like majorly is going wrong. Do you know, like we just were making toast and that smoke alarm's going off when you haven't actually burnt the toast. So that's what can happen in our brains. That protective alarm gets stuck even when there isn't real danger in front of us. So for parents living in chronic stress, such as like when you're having to manage a child, support a child with PANDAS or PANDAS, this protective brain understandably can get stuck on high alert. So you're always scanning for signs, waiting for the next flare, never able to fully relax. So, and for our children with PANDAS and PANDAS, it's even more complex because their protective brain isn't just affected by stress, it's also disrupted by very real biological changes. And that makes their alarm system much more sensitive and unpredictable. So it's like their alarm system's going off very easily, pretty much all the time. And of course, this can be exhausting for you as parents and carers, but also for your child. And again, I just want to remind us that it's no one's fault. It's not your child's, it's not yours. These storms are biological, neurological, but what we can do, which I keep coming back to, is to steady ourselves as best we can so we can support our children with as much compassion and steadiness as possible. So going back to Professor Gilbert, who I mentioned at the start when I spoke about the definition of compassion. So he developed this model of 3 emotion regulation systems, which we all have, as humans have, which helps us understand how our emotions are managed. And each system has an important part to play. So you've probably heard of the threat system. As I've said, this is our alarm system, and it activates that fight, flight, freeze response to keep us safe. But it doesn't, as we know, it doesn't only react to real changes, it can also react to imagined or remembered ones, which means it can easily get stuck. Now, another system which you might not have heard about is the drive system. We all have a drive system, and this motivates us to act, to achieve, to pursue our goals. It's what pushes us forward. We also have the third one, which often gets overlooked, and that's our soothing system. And this helps us rest, recover, feel safe and connect. And it very much balances the other 2 systems, the threat and the drive. And these systems link to our nervous system. So for anyone that wants to know a bit about the neuroscience of it, the threat and drive activate our sympathetic nervous system, which releases adrenaline and cortisol, just preparing the body for that fight, flight, freeze response. And our soothing system, the green one here, activates the parasympathetic nervous system, our calming and rest and digest response. So we all need these 3 systems. They're all very helpful when they're balanced, but when they become imbalanced, when one becomes too big or another too small, that's when life can feel really overwhelming. And that's when we need strategies gently to kind of restore the balance. So this is kind of the framework that I'll be using today when I'm thinking about the strategies to support your and your child's well-being. So if we just take a moment to look at perhaps how your child with PANS or PANDAS emotion regulation system is, remember that their systems at the moment, if they've got PANS and PANDAS, are heavily influenced not just by stress, but by the biology, that immune activation, the inflammation in the brain, particularly in the basal ganglia, making their protective brain much more sensitive. So their threat systems are often really massive. They're showing anxiety, rage, panic, OCD type behaviours, and their alarm gets triggered easily with greater intensity, and it can become it can take such a long time, as I'm sure you're experiencing, to kind of settle that threat system back down again. Their drive system is often very low, so children can feel very tired, very unmotivated, or struggle to engage in activities that they might previously have enjoyed doing or engage in schoolwork, as that motivation system's kind of understandably got smaller because their threat system's so massive. And then the soothing system is often really hard to access. So even when you surround your child by all the love and care that you're offering, it can sometimes feel impossible for them to relax or receive that comfort. Again, because it's just also out of balance for them. So in my opinion, it's not the biology. So in my opinion, it's not until the biological element is addressed through sort of medical guidance that the emotional regulation system can still remain highly dysregulated. But it's the sort of psychological and emotional support still matters, because it can provide that scaffolding and survival tools and comfort to kind of steady the storm to help address that imbalance. So just moving on to kind of parents and carers, when they're caring for a child with PANS and PANDAS, it can picture their emotion regulation systems can look a bit different, but just as intense. So the threat system is usually very high. You may feel that fear, that guilt, or that constant sense of being on alert, always scanning for signs of the next flare or how your child's behaving and responding. And it makes sense you're watching a child because you're watching a child suffer and you want to keep them safe. The drive system, in comparison to your child's, probably I find, can go into overdrive. So as mentioned previously, parents describe that endless kind of having to research, chase medical answers, advocate with schools, trying every possible angle to try and find ways to support your child's and help them. And all this comes from love and a desperate wish to help, but it can feel exhausting. And as a consequence of this big threat and drive system, the soothing system, the one that restores that balance, often gets squeezed out because there's so little time or energy left for like looking after yourself and your own well-being. It's like, when am I going to have time to do all of that? So this combination of high threat, high drive, and low soothing can create long-term that feeling of like chronic stress. Parents often describe sort of feeling at breaking points. They're really stretched beyond their limits. But the compassionate truth is that these responses, the emotional regulation disimbalance, is completely understandable given the extraordinary circumstances you're in. So what we explore in that's part of the session is how to gently rebalance your emotion regulation system. We're not going to ignore the threat or drive, but we can make more space for that soothing system. That's how we begin to steady ourselves in the storm. And understanding this imbalance helps us respond with compassion. Your child isn't choosing these reactions, nor are you. Their brain and immune systems are driving them, and you're not choosing your reactions either. Your nervous system is likely to be in a survival mode. So that's why it's important. You often hear, if anyone said to you already, remember that oxygen mask metaphor. Flight attendants often say, tell us to put our oxygen masks on ourselves first before our children, not because we as parents matter more, but because our steadiness as parents and carers creates that foundation for our child's stability. So supporting your child begins with supporting yourself as parents and carers first, because children can borrow calm from us, and we can role model how to have that calm. So when we as parents strengthen our own emotion regulation systems, children often feel safer, and this can help support their emotions. And when I talk about self-care, it isn't about lots of time out of the house or expensive spa days. This is about survival care, giving yourself permission to let go of non-essentials, making life easier where you can, and using your energy where it matters most. So just as we are going to dive into some strategies now, I just want to pause and just remind ourselves that we're all different. Each of us in this room today have had different life experiences. Our brains are wired in unique ways. Our families function differently, and the pans and pandas may be likely to be how you're experiencing it is going to be very different from one person to the next. So there's no one size fits all for these strategies. I hope you can think of the strategies that I'm sharing today as like tools in a toolbox. You might find some useful for you, others might be more helpful for your child. You might leave some aside. Some might work one week and not the work next. You know, that's okay. The goal isn't to like fix everything. It's about gentle rebalancing. So hopefully after today's session, you're going to have some tools to calm the alarm of your threat system, ease back the push of the drive, make that bit smaller, and strengthen your soothing system. So when that flare or the storm hits, it's when you so easily get swept away and sort of panic or overdrive, there's going to be, I want you to kind of think about this simple navigation guide. So to pause, to breathe, and steady yourself. So the pause, it's like dropping an anchor before the storm sweeps you away. The breath, it's like one slow, steady breath to calm your body. And then to steady yourself is the compassionate bit, to help steady yourself. It's like, what strategy can I use? What's the kindest way I can respond right now to myself or to my child? And if it feels hard to find that answer, you might try and imagine what your compassionate figure might say or do to help you feel calm and grounded, or what you might say to a friend in the same situation. So a reminder that we can't stop that storm, but we can steady ourselves. And sometimes it only takes a pause, a breath, and a compassionate step to help move you forward in a calmer way. So I don't know, not everyone likes analogies or metaphors and things, but kind of I think that hopefully this sort of framework and navigation guide can help you, something you can take forward with you in your life and try it out. So I want to begin with parenting strategies to boost the soothing system, because I think this is, as I've said before, this is the part that often gets forgotten. So to recap, the soothing system is linked to that rest, digest, recovery and connection. It's part of us that helps us feel safe, grounded, and steady. And without it, the other two systems, the threat and the drive, can completely take over. So if there's one system to really nurture, it's this one, and it has two components. So you've got the rest and digest that activates, that help us feel, activities that help us feel settled, grounded and calm. So these encourage the body and mind to slow down and recuperate. And then you've got the connection and safety part of supporting the soothing system. So that's about giving and receiving kindness and compassion. And it's about building safe connections with others and with ourselves. And we'll look at each of these two elements in more detail, because they're the anchors that can help us steady that boat in the middle of a storm. So for the rest and digest part, one of the most powerful ways to activate soothing is through our senses. And we know that people can be hyper, like over or under sensitive. So it's about trying to find which one works for you. So these are about little everyday things that signal safety in the body. They aren't luxuries. They're like little survival care tools. Sorry, let me just take a drink. So if you think about your senses, you have your eyesight. So it's about noticing something beautiful or joyful. That could be stepping outside into nature, maybe watching the clouds float by, noticing a butterfly flutter past, or looking at a favourite photo. They're just small moments that give our nervous system a signal of safety. But it's not just, it's about noticing it and giving it like a name, just spending a moment with that. There's also touch. That gentle, comforting touch can be really grounding. So stroking the texture of a blanket, holding a fidget item, hugging a pet. We talk about the infinity loop. That's kind of the infinity loop. You might be doing it with your finger, on your hand, just feeling that touch, that kind of repetitive move. It can be quite calming. Having and linking with the touch and the smell, maybe having a warm shower can sometimes be really helpful. So with having a shower, it's about paying attention. You're not just going in the shower, it's about paying attention to the warmth of the water on your skin, like the sound of it splashing, the smell of the soap. And often thoughts pop into your head, as they always do. You don't need to push them away or get caught up in them. You just need to notice them, let those thoughts float by like clouds, and gently just bring your attention back to the feeling of the water and the scents around you. That can really help boost your soothing system. So smells, as I said, scents, powerful for soothing. You may not like certain smells, but it's about finding one that works for you, like a flower, scent of a candle, lavender oil, or even the smell of food you enjoy, that coffee smell or bread smell. Just pausing just to notice a scent can gently shift that body out of an alarm activation. And then obviously you've got your taste, something warm or cool or tasty or even crunchy can bring comfort to your body. Just offering your body those small nurturing signals. You've obviously got then the sounds, so calming sounds are another anchor, like listening to your favourite music, bird song, maybe white noise or the noise of a fan or the rustle of leaves. So just letting that sound wrap around you like a blanket for the nervous system. And then finally, you've got gentle movement can help you feel settled. So a slow walk, a stretch, feeling warmth, or practicing mindfulness, or even speaking to yourself with a compassionate voice can bring the body into soothing. So the point isn't to do all of these. It's just about noticing which one works for you and which one might support you. And you can think about what might support your child as well when these rest and digest soothing strategies. They're very small practices, are like survival care. They're a way of saying to yourself and your body, I'm safe, I'm cared for, and that can help soften things for a bit. And then, so soothing isn't just about calming our senses, it's also about connection and safety. And for many children, and for parents, this can be just as powerful as those rest and digest ones. So connection can look really simple. It might be a gentle hug, reading a story together, watching a film, or sitting just quietly side by side, watching the clouds float by. Sometimes it's a puzzle, a short walk, or a quiet play, building some Lego together. Or maybe it's about noticing like those tiny glimmers together, like, oh, look at that rainbow outside, or singing your favourite song, or just a moment of shared laughter. These little connections can help children feel safe and also nourish us as parents. I'll share one example from a family I worked with. I was a bit unsure about sharing it because it's a bit, yeah. The parents described sort of being in the depths of the storm with their child, and they felt like there was almost no hope or joy in life. And yet, unexpectedly, they found joy in bin day. The whole process of putting the rubbish out and seeing it collected became a moment of laughter. They would joke with each other about how awful things must be if they were excited about the bins being emptied. But in the darkest days, that small moment of humour between the two parents became that glimmer of stress, well, glimmer of connection, sorry, and that kind of release of stress. So these are just small moments of connection we're talking about. Connecting with supportive people who understand what you're going through can also really help. Maybe on the PANDAS Facebook support group, or community support group, or a religious group, or just so long it's with people you feel supported and cared by. And they're not like big moments of connection. It might be just be get text from a friend, or just reaching out to somebody. Another component of connection and safety is creating predictable routines. So doing the same activity on the same day and time. So it might be just like, right, every Tuesday at 5:30, I'm going to go for just a walk around the block, or I'm going to go and do a mindfulness exercise in my bedroom. So just give me 5 minutes. But doing that at the same time each day or each week can be really helpful and help build that kind of safety and predictability at home. Having meal times at the same time, or when you all sit together, bedtime routines. So keeping things really predictable for yourself and also for your family and for your child really helps create that sense of safety. And compassionate phrases also create safety, and I will talk a bit more about this in a few slides time, but using phrases like, do you know, of course this feels overwhelming, like anyone would struggle, just helps soften that inner critic that might be going on in your mind. Another one under connection and safety can be about feeling safe spaces. So they act like anchors for the nervous system. So like for your child, creating a den, soft lightings, fairy lights, or a favourite comfort item can make a huge difference. So One child I heard about was so overwhelmed that they would often hide in cupboards for like extended period, like hours and hours on end, because they felt so frightened that they would harm somebody if they did come out of the cupboard, because they're full of rage, but so anxious as well because they became so fearful of the whole world around them. So the child would spend a long time in the cupboard. Obviously, it wasn't a nice place for that child or for the parents to see that child so upset hiding away. So together we helped create the kind of a family made a safe den for this child in their bedroom. They used like an extendable pole with a, you know, one of those curtain poles, and they put that around this child's bed. They added fairy lights, so it gave that child a place where they felt contained and safe, and reduced the need for that child to hide away. And those safe spaces are not just for children, it matters for you as parents and carers too. So finding a safe space for you at home where you can have a moment to pause, breathe and ground yourself is really vital. It could be your bedroom, a favourite chair, or even the bathroom, if that's the only quiet spot available. But it's trying to find use end of the garden, whatever it is, but you know that that's your place you can go to for a bit of safety for yourself. So soothing strategies don't have to be big or time consuming. They're just tiny acts of survival care. So another one that we had thought about was brushing your teeth. You know, when you brush your teeth, ideally for 2 minutes, maybe just doing it for 3 minutes. Do you know, just that extra minute more to yourself where you can kind of just have that time for yourself, just to kind of look after yourself. So soothing through connection and safety can help steady that storm. So not just for your child, but for the whole family. Before we continue just to look at the threat and the drive, I'd just like to invite you to pause with me just for a moment. And if you're feeling comfortable, just want to do a compassionate pause again. Put both feet on the floor like we did at the start. Let your shoulders drop and even rest your hands gently in your lap. Just take a slow breath in and a gentle breath out. And again, one slow, steady breath in and an easy breath out. And as you breathe, bring these words quietly to your mind. You can say them silently to yourself or softly if you like. It's understandable I feel this way. I'm doing my best in very hard circumstances. May I find steadiness in this moment. May I be kind to myself. Just notice how your body responds as you hold these words. No need to force anything, just notice. And now take one more slow breath in and one long steady breath out. That's it, just a pause and a moment of compassion, a breath of steadiness in the storm. And just know you can return just to that moment of compassion in the kitchen, in the car, that minute after you brushed your teeth, just to help steady you. Okay, moving on to the threat system. Just a reminder that threat system is our brain's alarm. It's designed to keep us safe, and we wouldn't want to switch it off. But in a storm of pandas, that alarm often feels like it's blaring all the time, and even tiny stresses can set it off for both children and for you. So for parents, living there with this constant alarm is exhausting. And because there's a biological element for your children, the usual strategies that help with anxiety, like reasoning or problem solving or deep breathing, often don't work during a flare. And that's not you doing it wrong, it's simply the biology that makes it harder. So when you notice your own threat system is switched on, maybe you feel that chest tighten, you're breathing quicker, that loud inner critic showing up, just remember to pause, to breathe and to steady yourself. And instead of trying to silence that alarm, turning to that survival self-care. That storm may still well be raging, but the survival care helps you stay afloat. So that might mean letting the laundry wait, having pasta again, dropping non-essential tasks. Compassion here means giving yourself permission to ease the pressure and save energy for what really matters. It's about noticing and naming that inner critic, that voice in your head. That's that voice again. Just keep it separate from yourself. So you can say, thank you for trying to protect me, and then gently set it aside. Try and replace it with a compassionate phrase like, It's understandable I feel this way. I'm doing my best in tough circumstances. Talk to yourself as you would talk to a close friend, that with kindness and understanding. And if you find relaxation techniques helpful, practice them when you're calm. So that gentle breathing, muscle relaxation or mindfulness. So it's important to do that when you're feeling calm. And then when the alarm's sounding and threat, your body will more easily remember how to settle when you start using those strategies. So these strategies will help you act as small anchors, helping you steady yourself even in the middle of that storm. So for children, as we know, their threat system's hypersensitive. It's like their alarm volume's turned up all the way. And this is where your calm becomes their lifeline. Children can borrow calm from you. And if you steady yourself first, that steadiness can ripple to them. I think one of the most powerful things you can do when your child's threat system is on overdrive is to acknowledge their feelings. So in those moments when your child's threat response shows up as anger, aggression or anxiety, compassion is still possible. That doesn't mean allowing unsafe behaviours. Boundaries remain important, but it does mean remembering that underneath their rage is fear. So when they're displaying that fear, that rage, their anxiety, if you can pause, breathe and steady yourself, your calm becomes something they can borrow. So this compassionate response might be when they're kicking off, they're really anxious, just saying, I can see how scared you are, I'm here. Doesn't fix the flare or their outburst, but it does help your child feel less alone in their storm. And over time, those small moments of connection begin to soothe their protective brain. So I'm going to show you, hopefully in a minute, I'm going to show you a video, but my video doesn't work. I think we've realised when Vicky and I were trying to practice this. So I'm going to stop sharing mine and Vicky's going to share it in a moment. And it's this lovely example from the Inside Out where Bing Bong the elephant has lost his favourite toy, and sadness comes to soothe him, connect with him, and acknowledge how he's feeling. And you can see, well, I won't let you watch it, but my reason for wanting you to see this is that it gives a really lovely example of how sadness connects with Bing Bong and acknowledges how he's feeling. And it can be really difficult to sit with uncomfortable feelings, but it can be so helpful. So I'm going to stop sharing, and Vicky.
Okay, now for the clever part where I'm going to try and share my screen to show you this. So let me see if I can make this work and find the right one. And hopefully I would be really grateful if you, Tina, because I can see you, if you can tell me if you can hear this. Okay, so there's no sound. So let me unshare and try again. Sorry about this, guys. Technology, hey? It's great when it works. So, yeah, it's not going to let me share it with the sound, and I don't understand why I can't do that, Vicky. So we pop it in the chat and ask people to listen to it.
Yeah, or they can listen to it at the end if they. I might put it in at the end if that's okay.
Okay, lovely.
And I'm conscious of the time. I'll give them. So I'm sorry that hasn't worked. If I'll give you an example instead. So a parent was telling me how hard she found it when she offered her child a glass of water. Could see their child was thirsty, and their child looked up and said, "Are you trying to poison me?" Now that parent, understandably, in that moment when their child said that to them, understandably felt shocked, alarmed, upset that their child would even think that they were trying to poison them. They wanted to just quickly jump in with like, "Of course not, don't be silly, why would I poison you?" But by doing that, that can make things worse, because then the child's fears and feelings that they have openly shared can feel dismissed, which can then lead to that child feeling more anxious, more angry, and want to just shut themselves away or lash out or even just, feel ashamed. Instead, in that moment, when the parent offers that drink of water and the child says, "Mum, are you trying to poison me?" and that parent has all those uncomfortable feelings, can just pause, drop their anchor, you know, and then steady themselves and say, acknowledge how that child's feeling. So you might say, "Gosh, that must feel really scary to think that I'm going to poison you. It sounds like the flare is giving you really frightening thoughts." And you can just sit together with that fear together. Your child feels listened to, their feelings are validated. Then when you're ready, and you can only judge that when your child's ready to move on, you might gently add, "Look, I can see you're really thirsty. Do you know, when you're ready, let's have a think together about what in this moment now, what feels safe to drink. Would it be if you saw me drink the water first, or maybe it's about you going getting the drink out the tap, or getting some juice out the fridge," whatever it is, you can then problem solve together. But the most important thing is just acknowledging and noticing and naming how they're feeling. So I'm sorry that video didn't work, but I hope that example gives you an idea of how you might do that. You might have also noticed when I was speaking there, that kind of said, the flare is making you think that. The flare is making you have those frightening thoughts. So that's about another strategy which often can be helpful, is externalizing the flare. Just like when I was saying to you to externalize that inner voice, that inner critic that's kind of can talk unkindly to you, it's externalizing the way that inner critic does that. So when your child talks about their fears openly with you, it's externalizing the flare. So naming it something separate from your child can help reduce that shame and helps both of you respond more compassionately. So instead of, "Oh, you're just being really difficult," you might say, "Look, that flare is making your thoughts feel really scary right now. Or that flare feels really strong right now. Let's just sit together until it eases." And to give you something practical to try, I'm going to guide you through something that's called the butterfly hug. It's a really simple evidence-based tool that helps parents and children calm their nervous system. So, and I know we're running out of time, but hopefully I'm gonna be able to share everything with you. So if you want to, you don't have to engage with this, but I invite you to join in with me if you feel able to. You can use it yourself, you can use it with your child. It's called the butterfly hug, and it uses gentle alternating movements, what's called bilateral stimulation, which helps activate both sides of the brain, which can lower the threat and gently bring more soothing. It's a way of telling your nervous system, you know, you're safe right now. So if we try it together, so we cross your arms over your chest, so each hand rests under your collarbones. Your fingers are pointing upwards towards your neck, and if you like, you can hook your thumbs together to make the body of a butterfly, with your fingers wings. Now just gently tap your hands one after the other. Left, right, left, right. Like the wings of a butterfly flapping. If you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes, simply soften your gaze, breathe slowly and deeply. You might just notice what thoughts, feelings, or body sensations come up for you. You don't need to change anything or push them away or judge it. Just let them pass through like clouds drifting across the sky. Just continue, just gently tapping. And when you're ready, just go at your own pace. When you're ready, just when your body normally tells you, or you kind of run out of time, like I'm doing now, just give the stop and you kind of rest your hands in your lap. So it's a simple tool you can come back to any time, or when your child's feeling overwhelmed. It doesn't make those problems disappear, but it's just that gentle calming your body, sense of connection together, just more steadiness in the moment. So just the final system is supporting the drive system. So as a recap, the drive system's our motivation system. It helps us set goals, seek out resources, and move towards the things that matter for us. So for children with PANS or PANDAS, the drive's often reduced. They may withdraw, lose interest in things they once loved, or feel just too exhausted to join in. And I want to stress that it's obviously not laziness, it's just their biology of their brain and body during a flare. So survival care here means gently boosting the drive system without pressure. And one way through doing this is goal setting. So breaking things down into really small, manageable steps while focusing what's most important to them. So if bedtime is frightening, you might break down the routine into smaller steps, acknowledging how scared they feel, how brave they are for trying. Offer them a bit of control, saying what feels possible right now. Maybe it's putting your pajamas on first, maybe it's brushing your teeth. Giving them choices can help them feel more in control. Thinking about what feels manageable in that moment. And also choosing activities that bring meaning or spark or enjoyment. So pair their effort of encouragement with small rewards so they can feel their efforts noticed and valued. And it's about celebrating just those tiny moments of progress. Even the tiniest step forwards is a win. And over time, those small wins can help children slowly reconnect with the things that matter most to them. So for parents, the challenge is often the opposite. The drive system can often shift into overdrive, the endless researching, striving for answers, constantly advocated, which is all driven by love, but often leading to exhaustion. So survival care for parents means pacing yourself, lowering demands. So this is when prioritising and saving energy really matters. If you spend hours just helping your child take tiny steps out of a cupboard, or if the school drop-offs are really long, intense because your child's so fearful of going in the building, you're not going to have much time or energy left in the day. And that's why you can't do it all. So that's about giving yourself permission to let go of some other tasks, like the laundry might have to wait. You're going to have pasta again for dinner, and that's okay. You might ask a friend to cook a meal for you, or lean on a family or friend to do, if you've got other children that need to get to school, ask them to do the school run. And maybe asking your workplace for flexibility, or to give yourself permission to just do bare minimum housework. These are survival care strategies and they matter. Another piece to support your drive system is to limit over researching. Googling can become a never-ending tunnel, so it may help just to set yourself a timer for the amount of research you do the day-to-day, or just decide that you're going to trust the information on the PANDAS charity website and leave it at that. Boundaries like that can really protect your energy. So it's about giving yourself permission to prioritise is an act of compassion. And lowering demands doesn't mean giving up. It means reducing what you and your family have to do while you're in the storm. And I've put the circles of control, which I'm going to go and mention in a moment. So with the drive system, it's about thinking, the question is, does it need a gentle boost or does it need softening? Both are acts of compassioning, understanding where the stress is and taking action to alleviate it. Am I all right to carry on? I'm aware of the time. I've got about 3 more slides to go.
That's fine.
Thank you. So by now, I hope you've gained a sense of like how your own and your child's systems all interact, and you've got some ideas, hopefully, to boost your soothing, settle the threat, and steady your drive system. So now, linked to steadying yourself on this parenting journey, I want to focus on a very common topic that I hear, and that's how that constant drive you might have to get back to baseline. So baseline being how your child was before the PANS and PANDAS. Now I just want to hold on to the fact that this longing is so natural. Of course, you want the child you remember, the life you had before, and with that comes grief for what's been lost, grief for how much has changed, and that grief is really valid, and that it deserves compassion. But that baseline can become a trap. Parents can feel pressure from schools, professionals, friends, or even yourself, the inner critic. I've got to get my child back to how they were. And each day can be measured against the past. And if the child isn't there yet, that can feel like a real failure or make you feel resentful or frustrated. I mean, one parent described how every morning they'd wake up thinking, it's today the day they're going to get back to normal. What else can I try? And every night they went to bed feeling like they'd failed because their child wasn't back to how they were. and that constant chasing left it understandably exhausted and hopeless. So the problem is baseline sits beyond our control. When we put all our energy there, threat ramps up, drive pushes harder, and that soothing gets squeezed out, and we find ourselves in this exhausting cycle. But the good news is, if we can step out of that cycle, that's where we can help ourselves. And this is where the 3 circles of control can help. So these circles are about helping you decide where to place your energy, and they can help preserve your precious energy levels and resources, which is particularly important when you're probably in survival mode. So in the center circle is what you can directly control. These are things like your responses to your child in the moment, the ways you co-regulate with your child, like acknowledging how they're feeling, doing the compassionate acts, how you talk to yourself when your inner critic pipes up, and how you shape the home environment to feel safe, predictable, and lower demands on yourself and your family. It also includes your own self-care and self-compassion practices, and how you might boost your soothing, those micro moments of calm and connection and rest, and keep an eye on when the kind of threat and drive are taking over, so you can bring your emotion regulationship back into balance. So they may feel small, but this is where your energy is going to have the most impact to navigate the journey that you're on with your child's on PANDAS and PANDAS. So in the middle circle, this is what you can influence. So this might be advocating for your child at school, communicating with medical teams, helping family members understand, talking to your employer about if there are any options for flexibility at work. So you can't control how everyone's going to respond, but you can take steps to shape how that conversation is going to look like. And then there's the outer circle, what is beyond your control. So things like the timing of flares, how your child can respond to medical treatment, the neurobiological process itself of PANDAS and PANDAS, other people's reactions. These are storms you just can't control, no matter how hard you try. So the key message here is that energy grows where we place our attention. And the more we pour our energy into that outer circle, the more depleted you become as a parent. But when you focus more on the center and the middle circles, you can kind of conserve some energy and find steadiness and create real shifts for yourself and for your children. So holding on, you can't control the storm, but you can choose where to steady your boat and focus the energy, and that choice matters. I'm just going to skip over this. This is just a summary of kind of that moving from that longing before to kind of shifting the focus to really focusing on the present, those small wins, those noticing those little glimmers. So as we come to an end, I just want to pause on the idea of having hope. So hope doesn't mean denying how hard this is. Hope means remembering that storms pass. They don't last forever. And while you may not be able to control the storm, you can steady the boat by focusing on that inner circle and noticing what you can influence and gently adjusting when your threat, drive or soothing system feel out of balance. And sometimes even one pause, one breath, that one small act of compassion is enough to kind of plant a seed of steadiness. And really hope that over time, as you've developed, you practice using with more tools, and more tools become part of your toolkit, that you'll be able to find some ways to steady yourself as you're kind of navigating this journey. And just remind yourself that you're doing your best in really impossible circumstances. And awareness of PANDAS and PANDAS is increasing, the guidelines are being developed, and the fact this conference is taking place this week shows that support and understanding for families is continuing to grow. And please remember that the PANDAS charity website's got lots of resources you can turn for support along the way.